Hey, how's it going, guys? Thank you for joining me tonight. DemonDriver here, and in this video we're going to install serverless retracts like these and these into these wings of Boeing 737s. We have the wings of my 737 MAX right here, 737-300 and 200, and in this video we're going to go ahead and install serverless retracts into the wings, and I'm going to show you how I do that with my airliners. Okay, let's get started. Alright, we are back, and let's get down to business. Alright, let's look at the tools that we're going to need in order to install our serverless retracts into the wings of our airliners. Now we have 737 MAX 7 wings, 300 and 200 back there. Okay, now what we're doing is we're going to be installing serverless retracts, much like these, into the wings. Now, tools you're going to need: a Dremel of any kind, powered, corded or cordless drill, various wrenches, steel screws, 3/4 steel screw right here. Here's some more, 1/2 inch right there, Allen wrenches, various clippers, an angle tool. Sometimes this comes in handy when you want to angle the landing gear. I'll show you that when we flip the wing. Washers come in very handy. Drill bits, various screwdrivers, and dust mask. All right. So those are the tools you're going to need. Okay, let's look at the tools that we're going to need in order to install serverless retracts into the wings of your airliner. Here we got the wings of a 737 MAX 7, 300, 200. We'll be installing serverless retracts into them. Tools: you want either corded or cordless Dremel, heavy duty or any kind of power drill, 20 volt down to 12 volt, that's fine. Wrenches, screws, we got 1/4 1/2 inch screws, drill bits, screwdrivers, X-Acto knife, Allen wrenches, angle adjust tools, degree tools. You'll see when I start adding the landing gear, it'll make sense. Washers, dust mask. All right, let's get right down to business and let's start working. So here's the wing, the bottom of the wing of our 737 MAX 7. I'm just holding these retracts in place right now with a little tape so they don't fall out. What we have is a larger scale serverless retract with a metal trunnion, oleo strut in place. What is an oleo strut? What's that? Well, I'm going to show you right now. This is what an oleo strut is. You have a aluminum rod going into another aluminum rod with a spring in between, and then there's a retainer nut right there that holds the whole assembly together, and that gives you your shock absorption. And that's what this is right here. This is just a bigger version. These are 2 3/4 inch Dubro foam wheels in scale with this size 737 MAX 7. Into position. I'm going to have to tighten that collet a little bit. It's a little loose, not a big deal, not a problem. And what I've done is, you can hot wire out or Dremel out the area where this is going to fit inside the wing. And I have marked off where the actual landing gear is supposed to be positioned when it's set up. Now, as you can see, obviously I don't have the wheel well hole cut in yet for the actual landing gear to retract into. That's later on down the road, but today what we're doing right now is I'm actually installing the landing gear. Now, what you see here with these two gears, or what you see me about to install these into, you may not be completely accustomed to this. What you have here is an aluminum plate, about a, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch aluminum plate, epoxied onto the bare styrofoam underside of the wing, and then a piece of plywood then sandwiched over that and attached with JB weld. Okay? Now, why do I do this? The reason is I've learned over the years of retracts is that you want to distribute the load of the retract of these forces, bending back, bending forward, and the shock of landing, hard landing. Now, the oleo strut absorbs a lot of that, but there's also the force backward, a force pulling back, and by having the aluminum sheet and the plywood, that helps distribute the loads and the forces across a large area. Now, the flip side, and what other people do, the other side of it, the other technique of mounting landing gear, is that you have spars and ribs latitudinally and longitudinally through the wing, and the retract fits down into the wing and mounts onto the plywood or carbon fiber or balsa, and it goes internally down into the wing. Okay? Now, advantage of that is it's flush inside the wing, it's a little bit better aerodynamically, and it's down inside the wing. The negative side of that is you have the retract attached to the internal spars and structure of the wing. Okay? So that if you have a bad landing, if you have a hard landing, when the retract bends and twists and rips out, 9 out of 10, well, a lot of the time it damages that internal spar. That internal wing spar gets damaged or destroyed, or the retract smashes through the actual top of the wing. Now, I know a lot of you who have ARFs and other planes and kits who have built out of plywood and balsa and fiberglass have done that, and you've had retracts rip out, and when they do, a lot of the times they take a lot of the wing with it. With this, the advantage is the tendency for, if the retract rips out, it's either going to take this mounting plate, or it may even rip off the entire carbon, this entire piece of aluminum, but you're not going to lose the wing, because you have a carbon fiber rod here, you have this carbon fiber rod, you got another carbon fiber rod going through, attaching the right and left wing, then you have another carbon fiber rod. This wing is as strong as a barn door. You're not going to do any damage to it. But if you have a hard landing and the gear wants to pull back and out, like so, it's not going to basically destroy the wing when it does. It's going to either break free on the bolts, or it might take parts of the plywood and or aluminum, or the actual oleo strut steel rod internally inside here. This piece bends back or bends out or bends that way, preventing more damage. Alright, now let's get down to actual mounting. Now, if we lay the retracts flat into the wing, the retracts adhere to the dihedral of the wings. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to bring the gear to a proper horizontal position. Okay? Like so. Now, one of the things I'm noticing is as I do that, I want to make sure I'm not getting any I'm not jamming in right down there. If you see there, I'm getting a little bit of, and what I have here is I have my hot wire. Now I can hot wire out that foam like a laser through butter, but I don't want to put my, I don't feel like putting on my respirator right now. So I'm just gonna dig out with a hobby knife whatever excess foam is inside there. I'll just dig it out that way. There we are. So that when I put the retract in, it will lay, the forward motor portion will lay in a little bit smoother. Alright, that looks pretty good. Okay, now what I also need to do is I need to use this tool. This is where this tool comes in, because this tool gives you an angle. Gives you a degree of angle, and you can lay it down on the surface of the wing, and you can basically suss out where you want or how you want the retracts to sit when the plane, when the retracts are out and they've been deployed, the gears are down. See, right now the gears are bent out, so we want to bring them in something like that. Something like that. So what we need to do is we need to then use our washers, like I was telling you. We got these washers over here, and these washers will be brought in and stacked up at the corner, and that will help bring the gear out. Now some of you would say just bend the oleo strut. Just bend that, get a blowtorch, heat it up, melt the steel and bend it. Well, the only problem with that is it then becomes, this retract is then can only be used on this Mach 7. Can't be used on the 300 or the 200. If I need to interchange something out, it is now fashioned for this plane. The part's been modified to only work on this airplane, and I've found that it's easier to just keep the part as interchangeable. Keep your parts as interchangeable as you can, like EDFs, servos, retracts, servo connections, servo extensions, ESCs. Try and keep those things interchangeable. In case you want to use one set of something on another plane, you can get away and do that. You can be able to do that. All right, let's go ahead and put our, what we're going to start to do is we're going to start to get ready to actually mount our retract. There's something very important I almost forgot, and I can't jump steps and make any mistakes here, and that is you need to get the landing gear perfectly aligned so that they're straight with the they're going in the right direction, so that the gears are not either angled in the wrong direction. And one of the ways you do that is you get a ruler and you basically go from that point right there, the center of this retract mount, to the center of this retract mount right about there, and you want to run a bead in between the two so that your servoless retracts are lined up properly when they retract, and one isn't retracting back and one's retracting forward, or vice versa. That the wheel truck, that the oleo strut, when it comes in, they both enter the fuse at the same point. Draw a line. There we are. There we are. And that'll help me get a baseline as to where to add the wheel well hole when I finally put it in. See that? So that when the gear retracts in, I know where it's going. I know that my retract is lined up properly. There we are. Okay, what I've had to do is I took the wheel stem off of the oleo strut for the two wheels, the two 2 3/4 inch wheels, and I'm basically laying the gear into the retract mounting mount, and I'm basically just getting an idea for what kind of angle I'm going to need, how many washers I'm going to need to get it into position. Also, it's good to have a pen handy. And you also line the gear up with this line right here, because that will tell you how the gear will retract down into the fuselage and the wheel well of your 7.3 or your any airliner. It gets a little bit more complicated when you have a 4-wheel or 6-wheel retract truck like on the 777 or A380. So I go ahead and take a pen and I draw in my first holes like so. Go ahead and draw those in, because you start off with your first holes, the top holes, and then you come in and then you get your secondary holes afterwards. Okay. It's probably easier to just use a drill bit to drill into there. Let's see what size hole I want to make here. That might do. You don't want to make the hole too big, because you basically, that's not bad. You want the screw to bite into the plywood and the aluminum sheet. I think that might even be steel sheet. I don't think it's aluminum. I think that's steel sheet. That's roofing sheet, if I'm not mistaken. All right, let's go ahead and put our drill bit in, and let's drill some holes. All right, let's put our dust mask on. You always want to protect your lungs. You don't want to breathe in any kind of, metal fragments or wood. So let's go ahead and start a little hole here. There we are. 1. 2. A smart thing to do is and I should have done it there, is you get a peg, and you actually, a steel peg, and you peg out where you want your screw to go. Alright, we drilled our first 2 holes. One of the things you can also do, and I'm going to do right now, is you line up your holes, and you can use a steel peg like this, a punch. And actually that punch is bent at the end. Let me straighten that out here. There we go. That's a little bit better. There we go. Alright. Let's line these up. And let's put our punch peg right through. And that'll kind of center where we want the other holes to be. Like so. Kinda. And put the other one in like so. There we are. This one's a little low, so let's move that up a tad. There we are. And now we know where to put the other 2 holes. And actually, we can actually make a little bit of a starter hole here. Take an X-Acto knife and spin that around. And that gives us a little bit of a starter hole. There we are, just like that. Come in with the drill. Nice and slow. There we are. Nice and slow. And you see I make sure that the drill bit isn't that long because you don't want to go through the whole wing. That would really suck. There we are. There we are, my friends. Like so. There we are. Now another big thing which is important is the choice of screw. Choice the screw and to obtain the proper angle so that the retract is not sitting like this and following the dihedral, but it's actually angled like that to be straight up and down and not bent in either position. Now this screw is probably not long enough. All right, this is a 1/2 inch. Here's a 3/4 inch. But the problem with this screw is it might be too narrow. It may not be wide enough. See, one of the things you want to make sure that when you it might be wide enough. I don't know. Let me see here. What do you guys think? That's long enough. It's going to get deep into that wing. This should work. These will be okay. All right. We have gone ahead and screwed in our first holes. We can hand screw these into position, or I could be lazy and just use the power drill, but I'll hand screw them in for now. Go ahead and let's put the first one in. Be nice and gentle. You can feel it going in, and it's going in nice. I think this is the proper size. Yeah, that's biting in pretty good. You can judge whether the screw is too loose pretty easily, or if it's not going in at all. You can gauge that as well. There we go. Don't tighten them all the way down, because you want to be able to have the ability to do that so that we can match the proper angle like that, and we can get the gear to match that angle. Bring that out a little bit more. There we are. Okay, now what do? Remember the washers? We can even use a bolt. Stick the bolt in. A bolt is a good, like that. Now we're starting to get that angle that I want. Not all the way. We need to match this. Alright, so we still have a ways to go. Okay, let's see if we put 2 bolts in there. Let's see what happens. Use the peg to line up the bolts. Bolts can sometimes be a good substitute for a washer, because you don't have to use as many washers. Let's line that up. There we are, we're lined up. And let's see where we are. That's pretty damn close. I'm going to go with that. That's fine. That's perfect. That's just what I want. So 2 bolts on this side, 2 bolts on each, 4 bolts in all. Let's put our 2 screws through. Let's line this one up a little bit better. There we are. 1, 2. And let's go ahead and hand tighten. Put it through, hand tighten. Now, if you look at this, if you look at the plywood, it's aerodynamically bent and shaved so that it's not flat and blunt. I did that, but you know what? I'll take that out later on and do this. I'll go ahead and take an X-Acto knife, and I'll go ahead and you can carve this and angle this to make this angled, just like this, and to give it a little bit more of an aerodynamic edge on it. Like that. Sand this piece of plastic mount and make it a little bit more aerodynamic. So when it's sitting, so that when this is sitting in there, it's a little bit more aerodynamic. I'll take that out later and do the same thing. All right, let's hand tighten this down a little bit more. There we are. Perfect. Nice. That's on there. All right, let's put our wheel rod back into place. Now that we have our got our gear in, I'll run it straight through, just like that. We get our washers, put them back in. See, I love straightforward nuts and bolts design. Very easy, very sturdy design. I don't like complexity if you don't need it. Make things easier on yourself, and make things so that they're easily taken apart, easily maintained. These are the retainer Allen screws. They hold the rod into position. Tighten them down. There's some play. I'm going to have to straighten that out. Go inside there and tighten that down a little bit. Not a big deal. We go ahead and tighten this. Make sure the wheels are free spinning. These are 2 3/4 inch Dubro foam wheels. They're very scale for airliner wheels because they have the aerodynamic groove, cooling grooves, and tire tread grooves. Very scale, because most airliners either have a grooveless flush tire, and it's like a slick, or they have the rain grooves to help, you know, get better traction on a wet runway. So there we are. Perfect. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Servoless retract mounted into the wing of our 737 MAX 7. Now I'll do the same thing with this side. I'll do the same exact thing. Okay, I hear you. You don't want this video to end without you seeing these retracts actually retract. Okay, let's do that right now. Let's cut out the wheel well holes into the wings of this 737-300 right now. Okay, come on. Okay, we got our retracts, servoless retracts into the wing. Right now, I'm just going to simply Y connect both servo leads from the retracts into a Y connector, right? And what I want to do is, before I actually cut the holes in, I want to go ahead, turn my radio on, and I want to see where the retracts actually come down, and I'm going to mark that point on the fuse. I don't normally do things this way, but because I am doing things in a... I usually finish sanding and spackling the belly before I cut the holes through, but today we'll make a little exception here. Not a big deal. Okay, here's what we do. Go ahead and, no matter what radio you're on, put the retract into the proper channel. Go ahead and retract the gears. Okay. You see where they're hitting? That's where I want to make the main hole. And they're hitting, the gear is gonna be right about there. That's where the center of the gear is. So I'm marking a little hole right there. I'm not a hole, but I'm making a mark. I'm making a mark right there where the collet of the gear is touching the belly. And do the same thing over here. Right about there. And I also mark off basically the width of the wheel to a degree either side of the wheel to basically get a baseline of how big the wheel well needs to be to give proper wheel clearance. And then by doing that, now I kind of know exactly how to position the holes, the wheel well holes. Okay, so the tools we're going to need in order to make these holes, we got the hole stencil, we got a grid ruler, caliper, marker, rotary Dremel if you want, and the easy way, a hot knife. When you use a hot knife, use a respirator. All right, very important, incredibly important. And of course, for regular sanding, always use a dust mask. Okay, your health and your safety is rather important to me. I don't want you guys getting sick or have anything happen. Okay, here's what we do with the caliper. Now, we gauge from this beginning of the wheel well mount plate to the center of the hole, excuse me, not the hole, but the center gear mark, center wheel mark, and then we do the same thing over here. And what do we see? It's basically the same. We'll actually move this one in a little bit by that much. And that's great, that's what we need. Here's the baseline, okay? Look, this is the retract landing gear baseline. This is the line to which the retracts are set on. You understand? It's important that you do that, because if you don't, your gears won't, they'll be crooked. You don't want to do that. All right, let's disconnect the servos. We're going to leave them out for now. All right, we take our stencil. Now we're going to draw the wheel well, the actual wheel well hole. All right, and we find a stencil that just roughly matches the hole, and there we are, right there. And that about lines it up. Line it up on the thing. Get it lined up the best we can. There we are. This is where you gotta be patient. Take your marker Alright, and draw the wheel well hole straight into the foam. Like that. Okay, do the same thing on the other side. Line it up with the baseline. Get it lined up properly. And once you're lined up, and you know you're lined up, go ahead and draw your hole. Like that. There we are. Perfect. Okay, now that we have our holes made, excuse me, our well circles drawn, we come in with the hot knife, because I want to keep this moving. Put on the respirator. Okay, respirator on. Turn on your hot knife. This is a welding knife. Right here, this is a welding knife. Here's the end. But it works perfectly as a hot knife. Okay? It looks, you can scoop with it. It's great. Watch this thing zip straight into these wheel wells. Just watch what happens. It tears them up. It just cuts right into them. You know what I'm talking about? It mauls them. It chews them up. It makes a meal out of them. Come on, what are you doing? All right. Perfect. Let me see here. All right, here we go. Look at that. You just dig right in, or on the periphery. You just dig straight in and dig the chunks out, like so. Be careful if it's hot, just watch yourself. Dig straight in, like so. Just go right into there. And you see the balsa belly of the fuselage section underneath there. You see that? There it is. Right there. And let's cut out a little section here for the actual gear strut. Let's cut that out too, because that's where the gear strut's going to go. Let's cut that out. There we go. All right. Now that we have that done, we come in with, see that's the easy part. We come in with our rotary drill. Alright, let's go ahead and let's retract the gear. Let's retract the right side gear. Here we go. Nice, not bad. It's catching up a little bit. It's catching a little bit on that side. It's catching up a little bit in there, and I have to deepen the well a little bit more. But other than that, it's damn near perfect. I've got both wells dug out, and I've got the servoless retracts Y connected right here. Let's go ahead and retract them. Let's see how well they work. Nice. Bring them out. Beautiful. A little bit more tweaking so that they drop in a little bit further. That's because the wells aren't deep enough. gonna have to make the wells deeper. Make them a little bit deeper. But other than that, man, that's perfect. And I'll do the same thing on the wings of the 200, 737-200. Alright. Well, that, my friend, is how you add your retracts to your RC Airliner. Well, there you have it. That's how I install my servoless retracts into the wings of my RC Airliners. It's just a aluminum plate with a plywood plate on top of that, and then the servoless retract mounted straight into it with nuts and bolts and screws, and then screwed into position, and then you use a tool to get the proper angle, and there you go. It's that easy. Alright, I hope this video was helpful and helps you with your build. Okay, it's DemonDriver. Bye-bye.